Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started because the clock says it's 11:50. The class is on gamifying your class, and I will tell you from the get-go, nobody else gets to come in because we're running out of chairs. Gamification is something I've gone to a number. You ready, Teresa?
Yeah. Just 1 second.
A number of classes on. I actually read 3 different books on gamification. I am by no means a gamification master, but I hope I can give you some of the ideas that I've got from the reading I've done and the courses I've gone through. Okay? So, first of all, if you want any of the slides, it's googl.zl3hfo, but I don't know that you need it. I am recording and I'll post it as well. So, but I always share the slides just in case. So, gamification is the idea. It's not about playing video games, although you can play video games in the classroom that are learning. It's really about applying game mechanics to a classroom to find new ways to motivate students to participate, either in group projects or individual projects. It can replace the grading structure, or it cannot replace the grading structure. It depends on how you want to run your class and how you personally apply these things, but it certainly can replace grades, okay? Primarily used to increase student motivation. I already said that it can or could not be used to replace gaming. The first thing about if you decide you want to try to apply gamification in your class is changing terminology away from the normal terminology that students are used to every day. So we don't talk about quests or talk about assignments in class. We talk about quests, and whether that's a group quest, okay, and again, it's about trying to get them away from the current grading structure, away from thinking about grades. So these are some of the terms that people use to replace terminology in the classroom. So you don't talk about assignments, you talk about quests. You don't talk about quizzes, you talk about challenges. And it talks about if it's a big test, it's not a challenge, it's a boss fight, where you're taking on the boss of the class or whatever to beat the boss. You don't talk about grades anymore. You talk about experience points. That they get so many points for doing an assignment, but we try to stay away from traditional points. We try to stay away 100. A test is, or a challenge is worth 100 points. Now, all of a sudden, you try to get them to think of more like, hey, this challenge is worth 2,000 experience points. Now, excuse our numbers, so we have to figure out new ways to divide things if we're going to use it on our grading scale. But if we stay away from traditional points, it's more effective trying to get kids to think of it that they're getting experience points and moving up. One of the things that's big in gamification is giving badges for accomplishments. And by the way, in all these things, I said all. And we're going to talk about how Moodle can do many of these things for you, but many teachers have nothing like Moodle when they gamify a classroom. So many of the things when we talk about social recognition, Moodle will do it for you. No, we closed the door at 50. But people do leaderboards that they put on their walls so people see where they're at as far as who's winning. They post badges on the wall. So instead of having the board that you have up there with what kid is in trouble, instead the same board would say who's earned this badge, and it would have the kids' avatars or names underneath there. People should have played for out of seats, Studebaker. So while I'm going to talk a lot about things that we can do online, all these things can also be done in a traditional elementary school or any other classroom by use of public boards and bulletin boards and stuff as well. So also along with badges, we talk about levels. This is one of the things in my personal class that I really thought I was trying, and I thought, it won't really be that big of a deal with high schoolers. Oh my gosh, they fight so hard to be the highest level in the class, because when we do projects, the guy who's the highest level is the person in charge of the project and hands out assignments. And they get little picture avatars on the side of their web page when they log on, corresponding to what level they're on. So levels are something that we kind of, instead of talking about grades, we talk about levels that they've achieved. We use leaderboards to show where they're at with their experience points. And in my class, it's nothing to do with their grade. Their grade is still their grade, but it has truly motivated people to go and get on Moodle more than they used to. And then I already said the social recognition part. What many teachers do, especially if they're using boards up in the classroom, that every student gets to hand in what they want their avatar or their nickname to be. So when it's up on the board, it says, Bruno22, it doesn't say the kid's name. Now, if the kid tells other kids their avatar name, that's up to them. You can't stop, obviously, any kids from talking. The other thing with leaderboards they talk about is to not put the whole board up. Kids don't like to see that they're last on the board, so many teachers will only show the top 50%, some even less than that, so you're fighting to get onto the leaderboard, and then when you're on the leaderboard, it shows who's where. And Moodle does even more than that. It'll make it so you don't even know where you're on the leaderboard. It just shows the guy above you and the guy below you, so you can see who you're trying to beat or who's catching up with you. So it does some neat things with that. So we talk about verbiage that we can change in our class, and obviously this is something that if you decide to do it, and as goes with myself as well, I need to start from day one changing what those things are so I don't fall back into that, hey, we got challenge number 1 that we're going to do, as opposed to halfway through the course trying to change the verbiage and switch over. Was very tough when I tried to do that. With quests, one of the things that everything that I read talked about is trying to break up what we used to do into smaller sections. They'll still do the same thing, but maybe instead of saying everybody's going to do this big, huge assignment, now we turn it into 3 separate quests and they can do it in whatever order they want to. So one of the things is kids being able to choose. So modify those traditional assignments and turn them into shorter learning activities. Doesn't mean you're going to drop anything out. Just means now they're going to choose what quest they want to do, maybe in what order. So breaking up a task that maybe took an hour into smaller quests. And one of actually the book that I just finished, one of the failures that teachers said they had was having too many quests open at one time. So at one point they had 25 options and the kids are like, there's just too much to choose from. And that person recommended 8 being the top as far as the number of options to give students if you're going to let them choose what quests they're going to do next. And maybe of those 8, they really only have to accomplish 5 of them, so you're allowing them different ways to get the same level of knowledge and the same assessments that you had before, but now you're breaking them up and you're letting the kids choose. So I put that at the bottom. They said more than 8 options can be really confusing for students. As far as points, I already said this. They said the biggest thing is to be extremely generous with the point structure. If everything's worth 100 points, then it looks just like it did before. They know that 93 points is an A and 75 points is a C, and they don't look at it like they're doing something different. So it recommends really increasing the level of points that are available, and if you're using the Moodle thing, it really needs a lot of tweaking because it doesn't do this at all. But it says, throw things up, make points relative to the complexity and the importance in your class, but try to stay away from 100 points. Unless it was something really small that maybe would have been worth 10, then maybe 100 points is okay. And they talk about if you're used to kind of gaming activities, farming is one of the things, means they just kind of keep doing the same thing over and over again to try to get points. Well, farming is where you can go 100 and less to try to, if they're just trying to get points and do things over and over again, that probably is where those kind of points belong with. So, and that was one of the things to avoid the 100-point thing. Choices are built into any game. Kids that play games are used to choosing things, failing at things, redoing things. They lose from failure, and they learn from choices. So one of the things it talks about, if you're trying to gamify your class, if you have one quest out there, what's that? That's just a homework, right? But if you have 3 different ones out there, hey, you guys make sure you need to get one of your quests done this week, and they get to choose which one they do. They also get to choose what kind of way maybe this project normally was a PowerPoint, but one of the quests is a paper, one of the quests ends with a PowerPoint, one of the quests ends with a movie. You're really getting the same assessment, but you're letting the kids choose what way they're trying to do that quest. Quests also can be done as group projects or individual projects. So if you have a quest, kind of like what we did this morning, that's how one of the teachers did their final exams. They did half their final exam as a group game and half their final exam as individual stuff. So your grade was highly, and he said it took a lot of time to try to spread the learning level out, right? Because you don't want all your A students in one group, and then all your D students in one group over here. You kind of spread them out, and the kids in the class that I read about, they really took to trying to become masters of very specific areas. So when they were doing the game-based thing, that Dan was in charge of making sure he knew everything about the maps of North America, and that was the one thing he studied most, more than something else. Now those are added together things, so they didn't just do a group grade, but they made that so that people were working together in some of these quests, and some of them they were individual, because obviously you have to have both in order to find out where the kids are. One of the things I talked about is encouraging students' ability to participate in the process. In gaming, it's called modding. But you don't just give quests, you let them come up with their own quests. So they can have a mystery quest that's available that's over the information that you're currently going over in class, and they come up with their own homework kind of thing. Their own thing that, hey, our group would like to do this quest, here's how we like to do it. And if it's good enough, you make it available to every other student in the class. And what a lot of, when these gaming classrooms are set up, they have questing stations around the room where it says quest 1, quest 2, and they have a little packet in there that says what the quests are, and the kids, you don't even tell them. They have to go around the room and go, we want to do this kind of thing. And then what's in that packet changes. And maybe the mystery quest is over there, and that changes every day, where the kids come in and have to decide what thing they want to do in the classroom there. But they encourage letting students be a part of the process to try to make them more engaged with it as well. Badges, I already mentioned badges. Badges are, they can be stickers on your wall. If you do stickers, some schools do stickers they put on the top of their laptop. I'm not doing that, but where everybody can see the badges they've got every single time they open up their laptop or participate in the one-to-one. The one person that did a badges thing on their Chromebooks, they actually put a big sleeve on their Chromebook, and then everybody, as they got a badge, put it on the outside of their Chromebook so everybody could see what badges they had earned. With Moodle, we can design all kinds of badges that are delivered electronically, and the kids, as they accomplish things, it just shows up, hey, you just earned this badge, and it pops up right in the middle of the screen where they've accomplished whatever you set up as the requirements for the badge. When you're doing sticker type thing, usually what they do is have a big board with a thing that says these are the things required to earn this badge, and then the kids' names go underneath it as those students accomplish those things. It's not associated with the grade necessarily, but with the accomplishment of an activity. So if you have to earn a specific badge, you have to do 4 quests this week to get the week 5 quester badge, and you change the graphic or whatever, and then it's about kids trying to accomplish stuff. Not always, now to accomplish, they have to have some relative level of work, right? It's not like they turn it in and you're like, you got it, it's a blank piece of paper with your name on it, woo, there's still some level of competency on that. You're gonna have to go through, whether it's a rubric that says you have to, meet this many of the rubric items or whatever for those things. But so badges, I was actually surprised at the badges thing too, that, it shows up on Moodle in the case of Moodle, and it stays there. It keeps showing the badges that the kids have earned on the side of the page as they go through, and the kids tend to like those as well. The leaderboard, I kind of already went over the leaderboard a little bit. In the case of Moodle, we can only see the person above and below, depending on how you set it up, how many people they can see on the leaderboards. But if you're going to put it out in your classroom boards, then that's when you want kids to come up with their own avatars, whatever their nickname they want to have. Then obviously is something that nobody else knows about. Because if they're not on the board, they don't want kids to know they're not on the board. but probably squiggles in this case will make sure everybody knows that, yeah, I'm squiggles. Number one. Of course, then they'll also see when squiggle falls off the list too, but so you kind of have to decide how many you want to show on that leaderboard. The stuff I read said probably half the class is probably a good idea because they have to kind of do so many quests to get in the top half. And again, we're not talking about grades, we're talking about experience points that they earn by doing those activities. So the kid that's used to getting a D could easily become number one on the leaderboard if you become engaged in it and realizes that if I keep doing these extra activities and get more points for it, then I can get up there even though maybe my activities are C's, but a lot of C's and doing all these extra assignments. Now I got on the board with maybe my C level work and knowledge because maybe I'm an IEP kid that doesn't get the best grades all the time or he's got issues, whatever. But he's got to get his experience points, and now everybody else, maybe, those 3 kids only did 3 quests, but he's worked his way around to do them all so that he can get on the leaderboard. And he's doing more work in your classroom than maybe he would have done before when you just had that one assignment out there. So that's kind of one of the ideas of the leaderboard thing out there is try to give kids that maybe if it was a grading scale wouldn't have showed up there, but now that you get them engaged and doing extra stuff, all of a sudden are. One of the things, surprises or Easter eggs are one of the things that are in gameplay. And for instance, the one article or the one book I read with the teacher that had them around the classroom, not every sheet in here was the same. Kids went by and took a sheet, and one kid gets a sheet that all of a sudden has a hidden activity at the bottom of the sheet. It's like, woohoo, I got the Easter egg now. And then that kid can get bonus experience points by doing this thing that nobody else even had the ability to do because they're the only person that got it out of that stack of sheets. In Moodle, there's something called Moodle Stash that you can hide around reading and hide around the course that I started doing when I added that just, a month and a half ago in my class. And some of the kids still haven't figured it out because basically hidden inside the reading is a picture related to what they're reading, and it says pick up on the picture. Some of them I figured out if I click on it, they pick it up. It all of a sudden disappears off the page, and it shows up in their stash on the side, and they get extra points for reading all the way through the article and finding the stash hidden somewhere in there. And I realized that is not going to affect our elementary school teachers, but the other thing would. So it's just something that you hide throughout the course so that some people, or in this case everyone with Moodle Stash, can find it. And kids started saying, hey, there's some stash on that page. And I'm like, you guys aren't supposed to tell each other where they are. I don't care if you tell them there's one there, but the whole point is if everybody gets the XP, then no one got ahead of anybody else. I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess I didn't think about that. So and I'm going to show you some of these things too as we go. Gaming is about redefining failure. It's about allowing kids to fail and redo things until they're not failing. It's about saying they did this quest over here and they gave it to you, and you tell them the reason they didn't succeed in this quest, but you didn't give them an F, you just handed it back to them, and they get to go and work on it again until they can show you that they passed the quest with this successful. Because what happens now if a kid turns in a paper and you give them an F, they got an F in their grade book and we move on, right? The idea with gamification is that they hand you that paper and you just say, oh, you didn't complete this quest, and you hand it back to them with here's why. Did you look at the requirements down here? You didn't even get to 200 words, and it was a 500 word quest, or whatever, okay? So instead of failing through it, they may fail that activity, but that doesn't mean they're done. That means they get to try it over and over again until they get it right. So it's about letting them fail, let them learn from their failure. Now, one of the conversations I had at OETC when we were in the class on one of these was, well, does that mean I have to grade more? Yeah, in a way it does. Okay? If it's a paper and they keep giving you a failing paper that's their quest, and you're having to continually give them feedback until they pass, depending on what it is, it could mean that we're grading more things. Okay? In Moodle, if it's electronic and if the quest is to pass this quiz, then have to do any more work. They just keep retaking the quiz until they can figure out what the right answers are in the quiz. But if in the case of a PowerPoint presentation or a major project, then to allow them to fail and redo things does mean it could change our workload and the way we look at things. That doesn't mean you need to completely grade it. You don't need to give them a point value. It can just be, you didn't complete this quest because of this. Let me know when you get that done. Okay. You don't have to give them a 32 out of 100 and say, fail. Just, you didn't complete the quest. So the act of failure isn't quite the same smackdown as a F with a 32 out of 100 would be. It's just, oh, sorry you didn't get this quest finished. You need to keep working on it. Okay. So the idea is that kids can do things over and over again until they master the skill or complete the quest or beat the boss or whatever term you want to use in any particular thing. But this is the biggest thing, I think, in gamification is the realization that in gaming, failure is not negative, it's just a learning opportunity. So we do those other things to help make them feel special, leaderboards and badges, make them feel good about their accomplishments, and at the same time we try to not make them feel bad about those things that they don't accomplish because they can just keep trying again and again when we do those things. So, things we can do in Moodle, and these things obviously are available to the elementary school teachers as well. Some of you don't use Moodle very much, so some of these things might be a little bit more confusing than other when we go in there. So, what Moodle does is it automates a lot of these things that are available to us that you could do with boards and you could do with posters and stuff, but it allows us to do all these a lot of these things automatically. So Moodle badges is one of the first things that is really, really not that hard. It's really, really not that hard to set up. They can be assigned for anything. You can make any kind of badge you want to. You can say what it is required to get that badge, and the badge will automatically pop up in the student screen as soon as they met those requirements. So you can make it for viewing things, for completing things. You can make it attached to a grade if you want to. You can have it really do anything that you can track in Moodle. You can make the basis for a badge. So, for instance, I might say the challenge at the end of this section is to get 70% of the questions right. Passing doesn't mean that you have to get 100%. You can set whatever that means on a particular item that they would have to do to get that badge. And I'm going to go to some of the screenshots on how to do that. So in order to do that, if you wanted to have it watch what they're doing, one of the things, and Dan gave a class on this today, is have Moodle track when things are completed. And you can have it track when they viewed it, when they finished it, when they submitted it, if it's in the case of a PowerPoint or a paper, or when they pass it, and passing is relative to whatever you want to say passing is. It doesn't have anything to do with the grade structure of a traditional class. So when I say that, I think I have a screen capture next. There we go. I can go into the badges, and I'm going to show you what I mean. If I go into the badges, I can go and either add a new badge or manage the badges that I already have set up. So when I say add a new badge, it just pops up and let me fill in what is this badge going to be called, what's the description of this badge, and then I can just drop any picture 256 kilobytes or less into there that I can use. So I look for images out on Google or in some cases I edit images and drop them in there. And then I change who's given the badge out. It just defaults to say National Trail Local School, and I put my email in there. And that's all it is to create the badge initially. This is the badge they get in this section they're in. It's called Hard Head Badge for Hard Drive Section Mastery, awarded for student completion of all quests and challenges. And it's an orange hard hat with a hard drive in the middle. Yeah.
Do they see the description when they get the badge?
They do, and it automatically, we're not at that screen, but there's automatically, you can edit what it says. It says, congratulations, you were just awarded badge name, and it has the description of the badge in there. So if they get this one, it says it's from the A+ hardware class, and my name's on there. if they get that badge. And again, it's just putting that text in there and dragging an image over there. But then you have to say, how do they get the badge? And really that one seems kind of silly. That means everybody with a certain role would get it. I don't know what that would be for. Or if they complete the whole course, again, don't use that one. And then you could say that some activity causes them to get the badge, which is the one that I use. And then you could say exactly what activity. So in the case of this badge, they have to have read the ICANN statements, done the self-assessment, read the page on hard drive basics, done the assignment on hard drive comparative. This is the final badge for this section, by the way. They have to have read this page on understanding hard drive performance. They have to have done the assignment on conventional versus solid state drives. And they have to have viewed the page on RAID definitions and read the page on everything you know about SLC, MSC, and NAND flash, and then finally pass the quiz. Once they've done all those things, so this is the end of the section badge. Once they've done all those things, it automatically pops up. And if they skipped anything in the course, which happens every single badge, there's somebody who just skipped doing something, like in class, they say, hey, make sure you read what the ICANN statements are at the beginning of the class before we start the section, because I want you to know what I'm trying to teach you, right? And if the student decides not to click on it, well, then it knows he didn't click on it, so he never got the badge. And then he goes, why didn't you get that badge, Mr. Fool? I was like, because you didn't do everything you were supposed to do in class. So it can be very complex, or you could just have one of these things. You say, as soon as you've done that, you get a badge for, great job badge or something. But Moodle will let you pick a huge number of things or just a couple of things. And in this case, I said I want all of these activities to be complete, but you could do it for any of these. You could say any of these 4 things. If you've done any of them, you automatically get the badge. So you could be an any or all when it comes to a badge. So this is what it looks like now. The criteria says you got to do all these things. And once I've set up that, I just click Enable Access, and anybody that's done those things automatically gets issued, and that's where the message is right there. That they'll pop up and see. And I don't think I have a screenshot of that, honestly. I don't. So you can edit the message that they get when they get any one of the badges. So there's an automated message that puts in the name of the badge and the description of the badge in there as well. So this is a set it and forget it type thing, which is what's nice about it. You can go and build badges for whatever section you're in, and then Moodle just automatically distributes them as kids get things completed. So you can have lots of badges for little tiny things that they do. This one's the big badge at the end of this particular section. So you can decide how you want to do that. And it's the same thing as if we were in a classroom setting without using Moodle. You'd have a little picture of what the badge is up on a poster with what the requirements are to get that badge, and obviously they wouldn't be like this if we were talking elementary school. But then when the kids get the badges, it shows in reverse order of what the badges that the kids have gotten so far. So it pops up in the middle of the screen, and then every time they come onto Moodle, it reminds them the badge that they however many badges that they last got. So those are some of the badges that I've got in my hardware class. Level Up is an add-on to Moodle that lets you reward levels based on Moodle interaction. When I wrote this, I said the defaults are mostly good, but then after reading the last book that I read, it sounds like they aren't, because the numbers that Moodle gives are kind of low based on that article. So, but we can change all those things when we go into Moodle. And what it does, I'm going to go back one picture, as the kids level up in a class, they become different levels of monks in my hardware class. They don't leave the room, so they are monks in my hardware class. In the tech class, they leave the room, so they're rangers. So they get different levels of being rangers in my. So you can define, by default it just has a star with a 1 and a 2 and a 3, but you can define what they're called. You can define all the pictures, so every time they go up a level, it lets them know they went up a level, and they got all of a sudden a different icon or a avatar over here showing where they're at. They can view the ladder and see where they are on the level up thing. But what level up does is it lets you do those things automatically. And like I said, it's by default just gives you little stars, but you can put whatever graphical image you want in the system to make them level up the way you want to. You also define how they go up, like mind set with 10 different levels in the class, and it uses an algorithm that starts with 120 points, and the coefficient is 1.3, and you can play with that and automatically refigure the numbers. And that's the one thing, after reading what I just read, I need to review for next year, is changing how it defines those levels. And you can give them names. This example I did, I used a whole bunch of Cub Scout names. So I did Bobcat, Tiger, Wolf, Bear in there to make different levels, which would probably be more relevant in a 4th, 5th, or 6th grade classroom. And then I just dropped the pictures in there. And the way it works is the picture just has to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Just name them for what level they're going to get. You drop them in that box, and it automatically says, okay, those are your pictures for your levels. And then when the kids go up, if they're level 1, they'll see that picture, level 2, level 3, as they go up through the class. And then there's some other settings. Really, these settings aren't that big of a deal. The only thing I would say is down here, there's, in the settings right here, there's what's called a cheat guard. And I am an idiot because I never hit the question, and I thought this was in minutes and it was in seconds. So saying they can't do it for 10 seconds doesn't mean anything, because they'll just sit there and keep clicking it to try to get points. So you have to figure out how long you want it to be in seconds between the let them do the same thing over and over again. The only problem with this cheat guard, as Mr. Studebaker will tell you, is it keeps track of how often. So it's saying max interactions in a given time frame. So they can only, in my class, do 3 things in 10 minutes. So they can't just keep clicking. But it doesn't know if you logged off and logged back in. So the kids will sit there and log out, log in, do something, log out, log in, do something, log out, log in, do something, to try to get points and get up. And that's called farming. And the book I read says that's okay, Dan. We just need to make the experience points for everything else way bigger, so when they're sitting there doing that, they go, I would get more points if I actually read the assignment than if I just keep clicking out into the page, which is what we've seen kids do. They'll just sit there, clicking out, log out, log in, log out, log in, log. And there's a way to make it so the login doesn't give them any points, which is what we ended up doing. I don't know if you did that on yours or not.
Thanks for sharing.
Logging in doesn't give you any points in my class, so they can't do that to get any points. But that's what farming is. It's doing something repetitively to try to get points. So if you raise all the other points up so that farming doesn't have as big of an impact, which some kids will still try to do. Yeah.
Did you do that in the rules?
It is in the rules. This isn't in the rules. The thing that keeps them from logging out.
You did a modification in your rules.
Yes. To keep them from logging out and logging in.
Plan on sharing?
I'll share that. Thank you. Yes. Not right now, because that wouldn't be fair. So, I'm just kidding. So, if we're talking about grading, you don't have to use it for grading. I saw a huge impact on my class with it having nothing to do with grades. But it did bring up the grades because the kids were trying to beat each other to the next level, and they were doing extra stuff to do it. And if they're doing extra homework to get themselves to the next level, it has an impact, even though it didn't change their grade at all, because those extra assignments still are formative and they didn't do anything with their grade book. But it did make them perform better. This year I've had the best performance on my tests that I've had almost ever. And I won't say that they're the best students I've ever had, but they seem to be willing to go in and do those extra things to try to beat each other, to try to be the higher level, and then in the end they learn more things from it. So this is an example of one of the scales from the book. It was talking about having boss fights, chapter tests, worth something like 2,000 points. And the teacher that I took this off of said they had 2 chapter tests and a traditional grading period, so they had 2 different boss fights. And of those, they made a portion of those, and that's one of the things I haven't even talked about at all, is setting up clans in your group. So it's not just we're all playing the game together, it's this is clan whatever, and that's clan whatever, and that's clan whatever, and they put the relative ranking of the clans on the board too. So the clans are fighting between classes, because everybody's in a clan in one of your classes. So Mr. Studebaker might have 4 sections of social studies. In each section he might have 4 different clans. So he's got 16 different clans up there on the leaderboard, and which clan is first which clan is second. So now all of a sudden kids are trying to work together to get their clan to move up. And maybe you do non-grade related rewards based on how that clan is doing. But that was one of the things they talked about on the boss fights is it's not all individual, that there'll be a section of it that maybe everybody takes the same Moodle quiz, but you get the grade of the highest person, or as long as one person got this question right, the clan got it right, kind of thing. So they do these boss fights as partial group things too. And then quests or assignments are worth some portion. Challenges or quizzes in his class are worth 1,000 points. And then farming, which in his class was just reading the links that you go to. He's got many of those, and those are worth 100 points. And then he worked out his scale kind of based on how many XP you gained, and that would get you an A if you wanted to use experience points for a grade 2. I haven't seen a need to do that, but people do that. Okay. Other gamification ideas that go along with it, they talk about using minimalistic design. Don't over-explain things when it comes to gamifying. Kids are used to clicking on things and trying it out and figuring it out. You don't have to explain everything. One of the things that Dan did his class is on Moodle access restrictions. You can make it so things just appear. What? 2 people showed up, but you recorded it, so that's what's important. So, and I did a thing on it as well. You can have it so that other things don't show up until they've done something else. So when we talk about only having 5 to 8 options at a time, when they've completed this one could just automatically appear so that they still have 5 to 8 options, even though they just did that one, because this one wasn't even there before they did it. So things just appear. Allowing choice, having options for them to be able to do things and choose what they want to do, and then obviously allowing failure and retakes based on that failure. In my classroom, I've always allowed retakes of summative things, but that doesn't mean they just get to come in and take the test over again. They have 5 different blended learning activities, sometimes 4, that they have to do in order to earn the right to redo it. So now you have to do 5 quests in order to get back to the boss. So you lost your boss fight, you got to do 5 new quests in order to get back around to fighting the boss again and retaking that test. Okay, so that's one of the kind of the things that they talk about in gamifying a classroom. Questions. That's kind of I really didn't want to go too minute into showing the Moodle stuff, which I certainly could. But if there are other questions that people have, and then no questions. I will tell you that when it comes to gaming at all, and I think I did a video on it, I don't know, a couple months ago, we added a whole bunch of actual games in Moodle. Things like crossword puzzles and Hangman and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Those all use the Moodle glossary or vocabulary words, but it's the Moodle glossary feature to automatically create those things for you. And those can be graded activities as well, that all you have to do is have things in the glossary and you can do it. If you've never used the Moodle, what's the game that shoots at you? I can't even think of the name of that one. There's one where it uses
Oh, the Space Invader one.
Yeah, the Space Invader one. There's a Moodle game on there too that basically it will take your test questions and turn it into a game, and you're down at the bottom and the question is up top and the right and wrong answers all are floating down like Space Invaders, and they'll make you blow up, but you have to shoot the right answer in order to make all the answers go away. It's very difficult.
Yeah,
Especially if you have only multiple choice works well. Yeah,
they're not really long answers.
yeah, and they can't have to be short answers. So if they're really long answers, it's very tough to play. I've played that and lost it many
So
times.
the level up, you should have said like to set up the levels, but then like to get the XP where you say you need this much XP to get to the next level. Is that like in the assignments and stuff? Is that where you assign?
No, actually that's in the setting. Okay,
So where do you where do you assign
I
like
can show you that.
this
So
gives
in
experience?
here in the settings themselves for where's that? Rules. It's in the rules. Okay. So by default, it has this CRUD rules. Okay. So by default it gives them 45 points for creating something, 9 points for updating something, 9 points for reading something, 3 points for updating something, and 0 points for deleting something. Okay, that's the default CRUD rule. Okay, and that's where I'm saying these are really, really low by what I read the other day. It seems like those. So you can actually, so those being the default rules, you can then go and say specific things or work specific amount of points. So up here, the Chapter 7 test, if they pass the Chapter 7 test, they get 2,000 points. So I had to add a rule to say if any of these conditions, but there's only one condition, they have to have completed the Chapter 7 test in order to get those points. So you can put individual things in there, and I could put all the tests in here, because you could say if any of these, and I haven't done it because I just started looking at the point changes, I could say add this test. So I can say every test is worth 2,000 points, okay, by putting it in there. They get 0 points when they do the following. Any of these conditions are true. And where's the one that I did that I was trying to show you, Dan? There we go. So 0 points are awarded when this rule says they came into the course, basically. So by default, they get points for coming in and reading the course. But I made a new rule, and all these rules override the defaults. But they get 0 points for coming into the course. You get nothing for just showing up. You got to do something. So. So you could put any rules right there. So I said 300 points anytime you create something, which means you submitted a PowerPoint, submitted a Word or something. So you can go and override all those things and come up with a better structure than what I think the Moodle Level Up does. Which is why I have to redo my ladder better. And that's all after I just bought the books when we were at OATC and just finished reading them the other day. Yeah.
So if they take the Chapter 7 test, is that also in your grade book? Is that how the system knows to give them the XP?
Right, and that's how it knows that they completed the test.
Right. And
So, and again, I'm not using XP for grades. It's just for motivation.
But if they
You
have
could.
a grade for it
Yes.
in your grade book, then
Yeah, and that goes with I'll show you the chapters. This is part of what Dan was talking about earlier in his class. But one of the things when you turn on activity completion is, I'll go to the Chapter 7 test, and I got to edit it in order to show you what I'm talking about. So if I edit the Chapter 7 test, down at the bottom of that is the activity completion section. So there's no restriction, although I could say this doesn't even show up unless you've done the PowerPoint, which I probably should do. Then I don't even have to unhide it when we're ready for the test. But this is saying, okay, show the activity complete when these conditions are met. And in my case, the condition is met when they get a passing grade, which has nothing to do with the grade scale. Passing grade is set up here in the test. So this test, I don't know how many points it's worth, but up here under grade, they have to get 80 points. So I'm going to assume this is a 100-point test. If they don't get 80 points, as far as the activity is concerned, they did not complete it. Because I'm calling mastery 80%. So now I'm going to let them. If they go through the other quests and come back and do the boss fight again, I'm going to open this up so they can try it again to complete it. But it's not complete until they get 80 out of the 100 points available. So that's part of what Dan's activity completion and restriction thing. That's a new feature in Moodle 3.0, that you can say, this is what it's required to be complete, and that's why in this one, there's a new report. If I look down here, I docked my administration, so I'm going to go back out again. You know how many phone calls I've had when people say things have disappeared because they docked them. Okay, so if I go to reports, one of the things I have is activity completion, and it shows all my kids and a check mark next to the things that they have completed. And in the course itself, there are tons of things that, I'll go to just the first one, that when I turn on activity completion, if it's a hashed box, it means they have to do something to complete it. If it's a solid box, which there's none on here, it means they can just click it and say, I'm done with that. They're verifying it on there.
Like, so with the I can statement, they go in, so they just have to open it to get
In this one, all they have to do is go into it and it's complete.
whether they actually read it or not.
Whether or not they run it or not, there's no way for me to know what their eyeballs are doing, right? There's limitations in it. So as long as they clicked on this, it's complete. And they can't see this because it's Not available unless the activity I can't enter is completed. They can't do this or see this till they click there. So when they click there, all of a sudden that shows up, and now they can do this. And did you get a complete hardware tour? That's just another question I wanted to make sure everybody got that was here for the tour. You know. So same thing. They in this one they have to have downloaded it in order for it to consider it complete because it's actually linked to a file, right? So same thing. And this one is just it's actually a quiz that says yes or no. Did you download and go over the syllabus with your parents? Yes or no? Okay, that's all I can do. I can't do this. So you can track all kinds of stuff on Moodle now and make other things, which is part of Gamify Moodle, right? If they don't even, everybody comes into the class and there's only one thing there and they click on it and all of a sudden 7 things show up. Well, yeah, those are the new quests. You can do any one of those. So you can make things just appear and disappear based on doing other things and time. Like after March 1st, this whole section is gone and it just will disappear. So, anybody else have any other questions? Hopefully everybody got something relative to them out of it. Anybody? No other questions? Yeah, okay.
Sorry, did you write down those books?
I don't have them and I don't remember them off the top of my head. One of them I would not recommend. The other one I would. So, and there is a book, I have it down on my desk, called The Gamification of Moodle, which if you would like to read, I'll get that at the top of it. It goes through these things on those. I'll put them away. You guys don't have to worry about putting them away. Or you can read them.